Working Cows Podcast, episode 382. This episode is brought to you by Farming Without the Bank.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag Studios. And this episode is brought to you by Farming Without the Bank. None of you are farming like you did 100 years ago. Why are you financing it like you did 100 years ago? The biggest part of your operation is the money that runs through your hands, and you let someone else control that. The bank gets the final say in what you get money for and when you pay it back. For many, this is a great relationship. Until it's not. Farming Without the Bank shows you how you can take back control of your money so that you can make the bank plan B instead of plan A. This is done by you creating your own banking system you own and control. To learn more, tune into the Farming Without the Bank podcast and go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book. Once you've read the book, Mary Jo will meet with you one-on-one and help you determine where and how to get started. She'll most likely also touch base on some estate transition ideas, financing ideas, business growth or startup ideas, and many other things she has experience with from helping thousands of farmers and ranchers like you. So go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book today and subscribe to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. Also, opportunities are abounding here in September. I'm calling it the smartest week in agriculture, coming up actually just in a week from when you're hearing this, which is September 9th through the 13th. There's all kinds of opportunities. There's a Soil Health Academy in Michigan with Gabe Brown, Alan Williams, and Jeremy Sweeten, and they'll be talking about making grazing pay in northern environments. There's a Stalker School in Oklahoma with Wally Olson, Steve Campbell, Don Natto. Awesome opportunity there to get the whole picture of stockers, from animal health and stockmanship to marketing. Great opportunity there. There's a grazing school in South Dakota for the South Dakota Grassland Coalition. There's a grazing school in Kansas with Dale Strickler and Greg Christensen, looking at multi-species grazing opportunities there. All of that happening September 9th through the 13th at varying parts of that week, some of them for the whole week. If that doesn't work, there's a grazing school, Jim Garish, the next week in Nebraska and Anselmo, Nebraska. I think there's some Ranching for Profit schools coming up the week after that. So all kinds of opportunities. And if none of that works for you, there's an opportunity with Pennington Conservation District. Pennington County Conservation District will be hosting their first annual conference in Rapid City, South Dakota. And that is going to be the Grasslands to Gardens Ag is for All conference. And it's a great opportunity, pretty awesome a venue, and also a pretty awesome outline for the event. They're going to be talking about gardening and grazing and grasslands, and so kind of a rural and urban alternating speakers and different opportunities there. And so that's taking place in Rapid City at the Ramkota Hotel on September 25th. And my guest today is Roy Thompson, who is a board member for the South Dakota Soil Health Coalition and a speaker at the event. And he's going to be talking about his journey from dis-ease to the abundant life. And that's what we're going to talk to him today about, that journey. And you'll have your opportunity to go and to ask him your questions on September 25th at the Pennington County Conservation District First Annual Conference. Grasslands to Garden, Ag is for All. So, Roy, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows Podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you reaching out and looking forward to this conversation. Right off the bat, you are going to be speaking at the Pennington County Conservation District annual meeting, first ever Pennington County Conservation District annual meeting. Is that taking place in Rapid City?
It is, yes, in Rapid City at the Ramcota, actually, is where it's going to be. And it's going to be everything from soil health, regenerative agriculture, forestry, and gardening. So,
Sure.
Conference is open to everyone. And for registration, people are welcome to please visit the Pennington County Conservation District website at penningtonconservation.com.
Very good.
And yeah, that's kind of the gist of that. But I'm excited to get to speak there. Like you say, it's going to be their first one.
Yeah. We'll have links to that today in the show notes page. Workingcows.net/382 will be the show notes page for today. Workingcows.net/382. By the time this releases, you'll have about 3 weeks to get registered and get there. Open to the public. Don't have to be a member or anything necessarily. So I think everybody's welcome. And sounds like a great outline for the conference. Lots of good people involved in that conservation district for sure. So people that I know and appreciate the work that they're doing. And so, I think it's a great opportunity. Wednesday, September 25th at the Ramcota. If you've been to Ranching for Profit in Rapid, that's where Ranching for Profit is always held in Rapid, is at the Ramcota. And so, I think everybody should take advantage of that if they're able. But your talk there is from dis-ease to the abundant life, and I guess I'd like to just start about talking about a little bit about the title. I appreciate the phrasing of dis-ease, and then also I appreciate the phrasing of abundant life. So can you tell me a little bit about what the talk is about, and what you'll be sharing there?
Yeah, for sure. So in 2007, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And throughout a couple of years, it was a long journey to actually even get a diagnosis. But throughout that journey, once I got to the Mayo Clinic and I was diagnosed, and I kind of got on a treatment plan of an IV medication every 6 to 8 weeks, they said right off the bat, this is just a therapy. It's not going to heal you. Crohn's is not a healable disease. And so we just want to monitor you and kind of give you good quality of life and make sure you're just, living as best you can. And she said, within 8 to 10 years, you're going to get immune to it. And we're going to have to switch up your meds because your body's going to get smart to it. So that's essentially what I went home with was that diagnosis. And a couple years later, I was also diagnosed with a liver disease called PSC, which is primary sclerosing cholangitis. And that's inflammation in the liver causing a narrowing of the bile ducts from scar tissue. And then your bile starts backing up in your bloodstream, and it just essentially poisons you a bit. And so I went to Mayo again I got real sick. My liver enzymes were sky high. And I went back and they did a procedure called an ERCP, and they went through my throat and down into my liver and brushed open my bile ducts or one of the main bile ducts. And it was hugely successful, but that kind of still left me wondering, what happens when this happens again, or if I do get immune to my meds, what does it look like going forward? And that's kind of the beginning of it. And I felt like it was 2012 when I was pulled down so bad by my liver, and my body had kind of showed signs of not responding to the medication at that time as well. So I really started noticing I was at such a low line of health that I just felt every little blip in the radar. If I ate something I knew I shouldn't, I felt awful within seconds, literally. If it was, something that was really good for me, then I'd feel an uptick in my health. And it was around the same time I was buying a combine as well. We were just getting into farming 2011, 2012. So I had a lot of debt. I'd borrowed money for, land, combine, corn planter, just everything for starting up. And I was learning the conventional model. So I was taking the most hybridized, latest and greatest traded corn and beans and everything, and the residual herbicides, everything. I was just trying to learn as much as I could and do it whatever I was told to. And that came with a lot of stress. And so I owed money on my cattle, my operating, my equipment, my vehicles. In my slides, when I get an opportunity to talk about the financial side, I even owed money on my laptop. So, I mean, it was quite something that was, an eye opener for me on a lot of levels. And so when I came back home from that liver procedure, I realized two really main things, and it sounds so Captain Obvious, but the food you eat matters, and stress, chronic stress, is no good. I mean, certain levels of stress are good. It's what gets us up in the bed, up from sleep in the morning, and gets us going with our day. But it's that chronic stress that can be a problem. And so when I realized that, I really started thinking, man, if I noticed an uptick, in my health when I would eat just simple little things, what if I had the most nutrient dense version of that thing? What would my body do then? And I just started reading health articles and getting to the starting to learn about nutrition. It was like drinking water through a fire hose. It was just, I just couldn't consume enough content about it, and starting to apply it to my life. And that's kind of the early story, the baseline story of where we're coming from, I guess, when we talk about disease to abundant life. When I did, just to give you the cliff notes, I did go to the point where I got totally immune to my meds and I wasn't noticing any benefit from it. And I talked to my doctor and she said, well, we do need to do an antibody test, but I need you to get one more IV and then we'll wait 4 weeks. And at that point, we'll test your antibodies and see where they're at, see how much medicine's in your system, and kind of go from there. And I'd been learning about health and nutrition for a long, long time up to that point, a couple of years, and became a certified health coach and was implementing as many things as I possibly could with nutrient dense foods and removing toxins from my body. And the next step was I was going to do this 28-day detox, and it was just simply super nutrient dense food and eliminate toxins, detoxify your body, and heal your body with nutrition. And so this was going to take exactly 4 weeks. So I thought it was a perfect time after I got my last IV to then, since I'm going to have labs done in 4 weeks, I want to see what this nutrient dense food can do. And so we started this detox the day after I got my IV. 4 weeks later, I go back for my labs, and I've been feeling great. It felt better than I had in 8 years. And I got my labs back, and my liver enzymes were completely normal for the first time. And at that time was 4 years before they'd been normal, and they were totally normal. And my Crohn's felt like it was in total remission, and it just was. I felt amazing. And my doctor emailed that day and said, well, your body shows high antibody levels, so it looks like you kind of are building some immunity, but there's no medicine in your system. So you've got to be getting those IVs on time, and we need you to get them regularly. I think you just haven't been getting them regularly. And so I said, oh, I have been, and it's been the highest dose of Remicade I could get and all these things. And I did finally then tell her what I did and with the diet. And she said, oh, wow, that's great. Well, I'm glad. So let's continue on with that protocol and your medicine. And I think we got you on the right path. And I said, with all due respect, would you, allow me to go off meds for 6 months? Because I just feel like I detoxified all this medicine out of my system. And I feel so good because my body's healing. And I was just wondering, would you consider supporting me in going off my meds? And I didn't want to put more toxins in my body after I knew I had them out. And so she said, well, I'm very leery in doing this, but this is a partnership, not a dictatorship. So yeah, let's give it a try. And, from that point forward, as the last time I was on medication for the Crohn's, and my liver was totally normal. I went back for, I think, 4 years afterwards to have my annual checkup. And the first year was much better. The second year was so good that the surgeon that did the colonoscopy actually had to page my doctor to make sure they were looking for the right thing, because he couldn't find any disease or scar tissue or any inflammation even. And then a couple years after that, looked good as well, and just been so grateful for that. And so in dis-ease to abundant life, I felt like splitting the word up kind of takes away the power of the word, I guess, in a way. The word disease, we always think, well, this is what you're always going to have. You just live with it. You better try to figure out the best quality of life you can have with this disease. But when you split it up, dis-ease, it's not easy. It's uncomfortable at times, but at the same time, it's not something that is always necessarily going to be there. And I know God really used nutrition in my life. I'm not saying that he's going to have the same story for everybody, but I do feel that he wants to use it in people's lives a lot more than what people see.
For sure.
And that's where the abundant life part comes, is that when he allows us to heal this way and to feel this way because of what he's created on this earth, and when it's grown in a way that I feel creates more nutrient density, people will heal more when they have healthy nutrient dense food. And so then you can move on to the abundant life part of just being, even through it, even through the disease, you can start feeling that joy and seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, that, I'm over this, my body is overcoming this, and this is how it used to be. This is how I'm taking care of it. And, I see a future of where I can be without medication, perhaps, or, whatever that might be in your own story. But I've just been very grateful to see it come full circle to where started off so sick and really didn't care about nutrition to being passionate about nutrition and how food is raised. And that's led me to more of abundant life too, because I've been able to see in areas of our life that we've needed to change. And like I spoke with you before the show started being recorded, was we were having a financial journey at the exact same time. And I looked at our operation of raising crops conventionally and cattle conventionally and growing food, but yet I couldn't consume any of it myself. So I was ordering in all our food, and I'm literally a rancher and a farmer, and I was just so disconnected from my food source. And so that was kind of an eye opener. And I was like, boy, now after this health transformation, what do I do now? I can't really go back to raising food the way I was, and I don't feel right doing it. I have this new set of convictions of how to produce food. So what do I do now? And that was so discouraging, because I thought, well, I've got to find a different livelihood and maybe start a health website or something like that. And that was when I learned about Gabe Brown on YouTube and regenerative agriculture. The thing that I was absolutely hooked when he said that in Gabe fashion, he said, I'm really tired of people when they talk about sustainable agriculture, because everybody's soils are degraded at this point. And why do we want to sustain a degraded resource? Let's regenerate. And after just coming through my health journey, I thought, man, that is so true. Why do we want to maintain this level of health when we could regenerate our bodies and, be regenerative in our health as well? And that just, it hooked me. And so there again, I went down a new journey of drinking water from a fire hose, of listening to content by all the regenerative pioneers. And I've just been so grateful to be, have that kind of influence in my life. And that led us to a different place financially as well. And just so grateful for that.
Yeah, that's a great story. I appreciate that very much. So I'm going to back up and just kind of ask some follow-up questions here, kind of back through your story a little bit. First of all, just kind of one of those dumb base level questions. What is Crohn's disease?
Yeah, so Crohn's is an inflammatory bowel disease. So it's chronic inflammation in your small intestine primarily. So there's Crohn's colitis, there's ulcerative colitis, and there's IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So they're three kind of different diseases that are different parts of the intestines, but it's essentially just inflammation in your colon, so you can't digest your food very well, and you lose weight quite quickly. And I know when I was putting together some slides for a talk I was able to give one time, it said in WebMD that there is no cure for Crohn's. And so that was something that, I just always assumed would be there. And I'm so grateful that it's not anymore. So it's chronic inflammation basically throughout the body, but with Crohn's, it's in the small intestine. And then my liver was also the PSC, is chronic liver inflammation. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that, in elementary school, at least my understanding in elementary school was, your stomach digests your food and then your small intestine's just the vehicle to pass it through the rest of your body, which is kind of totally not correct.
Sure.
Your stomach makes your food useful for your intestinal tract, and your intestinal tract extracts the nutrients. Is that kind of right? How you understand it?
Absolutely. I believe so. I think digestion actually begins in the mouth.
Right.
And it actually even begins when you're making your food. If you're making food and you smell it and you see it and it's pleasing to the eye and to your senses, your mouth starts watering.
Right.
That's your digestive enzymes actually starting to coat your mouth. So as soon as that first bite goes in, it's already coated with digestive enzymes. And then down to your stomach where, it's broken down by hydrochloric acid and getting prepared for digest and another further part of digestion. And then as it goes throughout the rest of your body, it's just continually broken down. So yeah, I agree.
And if you don't overcook your steak, they're easier to chew and they are probably easier to digest then too.
100%. Absolutely. You bet.
So, okay. Now, next question. What was the detox regimen?
Yeah. So the detox basically was is upon waking I would have 8 to 16 ounces of bone broth, either chicken bone broth or grass-fed beef bone broth. And it's just, that's just super nutrient dense with tons and tons of amino acids. And for those that don't know, amino acids is the building blocks of proteins. So that's the first thing I would have. And it's kind of like a fast. I'm not putting tons of, heavy stuff in my system right away, but it was that bone broth that your body has to do literally nothing it doesn't have to do anything to it to utilize it. So that's what I would have waking up. And then mid-morning I would have, I think it was about 20 ounces of juiced veggies. I had these different recipes of juiced veggies that I would do. And I would have that for a lot of the vitamin, pack that I would have. And then I'd move on from there. Right at noon, I would have what was called a Beyond Budwig protocol. And so this was done by a doctor named Dr. Josh Axe. He no longer sells the course. I believe he might have something called the leaky gut protocol, which is similar, but it's by noon, it was called the Budwig protocol. And that was just about 50 grams of saturated fat to really recharge the cells of your body. It was A2 kefir with flax oil, coconut oil, soaked chia seeds, and trying to think of what else would have been in that. I'd probably say coconut oil too, but it was pretty tough to hack. It was a little bit not the tastiest thing. So I would
oily drinkable yogurt is what that sounds like to me. Maybe with some chia seed chunks in it.
Yep. Right. And it was super nutrient dense, and you could feel your body it felt like you put a battery charger on your cells, and it felt great. It was a little tough to hack, but then by the time I've tried to do it every year, but I haven't the last once a year. And when I got a little smarter, then I actually put a little cacao powder in it, a little honey in it, and then I froze it, and then I'd eat it like a chocolate bar. But then that was much easier. But it was, that's kind of the hardest part of the detox was up till noon. Mid-afternoon, I'd have a raw salad, either steamed or raw, with a nice chunk of protein, grass-fed or wild-caught protein with it. And then in the evening, I was just kind of a feast. I'd usually have grass-fed steak with steamed broccoli, tons of grass-fed butter all over everything. And we limited most all starches, no beans, no potato, no nothing. I think about the third week, I did some berries in a smoothie rather than that vegetable juice. I was getting pretty tired of that by the third week. So I did it a berry smoothie instead, and always enjoyed that as well. So evening was always a feast, and I did that pretty consistently. We'd either have pastured chicken or beef or whatever it would be, or salmon in the evenings. And it was just kind of a celebration for making it through another day with no snacks other than the food we were eating, and just most nutrient dense as it possibly could be. And I really had really good response from that.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Farming Without the Bank. None of you are farming like you did 100 years ago. Why are you financing it like you did 100 years ago? The biggest part of your operation is the money that runs through your hands, and you let someone else control that. The bank gets the final say in what you get money for and when you pay it back. For many, this is a great relationship, until it's not. Farming Without the Bank shows you how you can take back control of your money so that you can make the bank plan B instead of plan A. This is done by you creating your own banking system you own and control. To learn more, tune into the Farming Without the Bank podcast and go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book. Once you've read the book, Mary Jo will meet with you one-on-one and help you determine where and how to get started. She'll most likely also touch base on some estate transition ideas, financing ideas, business growth or startup ideas, and many other things she has experience with from helping thousands of farmers and ranchers like you. So go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book today and subscribe to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. Have you talked to other people in the Crohn's community that have shared similar stories?
Yeah. So I've visited with several people in the last few years that have either had it or do have it. And especially at, I think it was South Dakota Soil Health Coalition conference in Sioux Falls a couple of years ago, got to visit with some people that had similar responses as well. And some people, have done similar things for a little while. And a couple of weeks, some people try different things, maybe try gluten-free for a couple of weeks and this or that. But the thing that was different about this detox is understanding that your cells are constantly regenerating. So the longer you can be consistent with it, the first month was the biggest part. That's what sold me on it. But then it became a lifestyle. And from that point on, my cells have recharged a lot, but every 3 months, all the cells in your body are new. And so if you can stay consistent on a whole food or a nutrient dense protocol, just say for 3 months, you're going to see some incredible strides. And what I've noticed is a lot of people missed out on probably the bone broth. Mainly, they didn't realize it was quite so healing as it is, and as nutrient rich for the body. And then also the consistency. I think people kind of decide it's not quite for them a little too soon, and they kind of pull the plug on a healthy lifestyle choice before they've actually been able to see the results they're going for. But if it can become a mindset and understand why you're doing what you're doing, and you see things differently in nutrition, and your body will start craving that nutrient dense food. And then it's much easier to allow it to become a lifestyle. And now, I mean, I don't have to be near as strict on my food choices. If you're at a restaurant or if you're in a hurry and you grab something through a fast food deal, you can just make the best choice you can and not overdo it and just carry on. You don't notice anything in your health, in my health. And I'm so grateful for that. But my mom used to say when I first went on the detox, she said, well, could you go back to eating like you used to? And then you don't have to worry about it anymore now that you're better. And I said, well, I probably could, but I don't know why I'd want to, because I don't want to get back to where I was, and I don't want to sustain a degraded resource, but I want to continue regenerating. So
for sure. So the maintenance of this lifestyle in the years since kind of the first detox and some of those things, just basically, as you just said, kind of eating as clean as you can is kind of the rule of the road for you.
Yeah. Yep. And I do supplement for aiding myself in detoxification as well. So I think eating a whole food diet is hugely important. Being active is important. I've never been anybody that consumes alcohol, but that's one thing that people ask me too is did I cut out alcohol? And I never did have alcohol, but a lot of people have said that they've noticed when they cut that out of their life, that's a stimulant. So that can obviously stimulate, more of a autoimmune problem as well, if you're already struggling with an autoimmune condition. So that's something. I don't have traditional pop. I kind of cut pop out for good. I have enjoyed a brand called Poppy or Olipop. Those are healthier, gut friendly drinks. You can get it. You're starting to see them all over now. There's some of the gas stations here and there. A lot of gas stations carry kombucha, so I oftentimes grab that if I'm in a hurry. Or just for a convenience item at the gas station. So yeah, mainly nutrient dense foods. I do supplement a little bit with the liver cleanse supplement I take. And I take something called Shilajit every few days. I take some. It's actually a resin that came out of the mountains, but it's really good in helping your body bind heavy metals and excrete them and take them out as well. So I do take a probiotic, liver support, I guess, and then a little bit of Shilajit on a consistent basis. But other than that, we eat low processed, low pasteurized, low temp pasteurized dairy, grass fed and raw cheese when we can. Sometimes raw is hard to come by, so we buy some that's low temp pasteurized and go with that. And we raise our own grass fed, grass finished beef now and finishing on cover crop. So we have that. We have our own eggs and our garden veggies during the summer, and then my wife tries to can what she can for the winter. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward now, and it's not too difficult to follow the maintenance plan. When you're blessed to have an opportunity to grow a lot of it is really nice too. So.
Yeah, that's a great segue, because kind of like to finish up the conversation today talking about the transition into regenerative agriculture. Kind of, you sounded like conventional, tillage and kind of those kinds of things, corn and bean rotation kind of a thing, or are you far enough west that you even had some wheat in there?
Yep. We are far enough west. We had some wheat. So we were corn, wheat, beans. And that's just kind of, I remember I was hiring my corn plant, and my cousin said to me, he was planting for me. He said, "So what are you going to do? Corn, wheat, beans?" And my first year farming. It's like, sure. Sounds good to me. And I knew nothing about what I was doing. We were just learning, soil test done by the elevator and put on what they tell you to. And I was given a talk in Lincoln, Nebraska here a couple years ago, and I was telling about how our financial journey. Showed what I put down for our fertility on our corn in hopes for 130 bushel corn, and it was more fertility than a lot of the guys in Iowa were putting down for their 300 bushel corn, and everybody just kind of gasped in the room because they couldn't believe that the elevator was calling me to put down this amount of nutrients for the crop. And yet I was between rainfall and some of the ground we farm and stuff. It just was, I was unheard of to think of getting 130 bushel corn. And some years we got 90, some years I think one year I got 140 when I was farming that way, but I've actually had higher yields going a regenerative model than I had conventional. So I was losing. My banker asked me that first year in 2016, she said, "I hope you're sitting down," after I got all my financials done for. And she said, "Well, we lost about $75,000 this year. And we need to figure out," she said, "well, there's a hole in the bucket and we got to find it, plug it, increase revenue. Got to eliminate any unneeded input costs, sell any unneeded equipment." And it was, I combed through the book so many times. And I was like, where could this have fallen through the cracks? And it really came down to high inputs, low crop inventory, but also prices were low at that time. And it just was, my health insurance was $30,000 a year. And I felt like I had to stick with that because my IV Remicade was $18,000 per treatment. But now in 2016, I wasn't quite ready to cancel my health insurance because I hadn't even been a year off medication yet. So I wanted to keep that. And between my health insurance, my interest, our living expenses, and we've never lived outside our means. It was a big question mark, is where did this money go? And when it got down to it, I realized that I needed between interest, insurance, living expenses, everything, needed about 120,000 profit just to get back to a baseline of zero. And that was awfully hard to do with low commodity prices and high inputs. And so when I started learning about regenerative ag, we cut phosphorus right away, completely out, and never noticed any yield drag at all from taking that out. In fact, we had some of our better crops, and we were dry 2016, 2017. We hailed out 2019. And 2020 was a good year. We had lots of moisture 2020 and 2021. And, but we started implementing cover crops and getting cattle across all of our farm acres as well as our cash crops. And I started implementing other crops like I planted some lentils, I planted cereal rye, oats, and cut out wheat. Felt like the last time I had 60 bushel wheat, I still donated the chemical and spraying and stuff like that. So we cut out residual herbicides. I actually went to an untreated non-GMO corn to save money at the time because it was $30 an acre cheaper, and we haven't gone back to that either. So haven't gone back to conventional corn, and it really fit nicely. And at Pennington County conference, I'll be able to tell the whole story, but I basically what it is it really dovetailed well into our financial journey because we needed to regenerate my health, we needed to regenerate our soils, and we needed to regenerate our financial balance sheet. So when I realized regenerative ag can actually do all three, I truly was sold on it. And a lot of people that I've talked to said, well, I'd like to play around with some of that regenerative stuff when I cut back a little bit and when I have the money to do so. And for me, it was kind of out of necessity rather than open to try it someday. So it's something I'm sure grateful for and eager to continue down that path.
Similar to Gabe Brown's story, right? Of 3 years of hail and crop failures. My favorite part of that story is I didn't have the money to put the twine in the baler. So that's how we started bale grazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. When I read Dirt to Soil, and I talked to Gabe about that before, but I don't think it hit me as hard as it did when I read his book because I was in the midst of it at that point. And it felt very, very similar.
Right. Yep, for sure. No, I love your story, man. It's pretty cool. I really appreciate it. And we're kind of just touching the surface, and other people I'm sure will have their chance to ask their own questions at the Pennington County Conservation District meeting on September 25th in Rapid City. So I think people should take the time to get there. So kind of give us a snapshot of your operation today. What does that look like? What all do you have going on there from crops and livestock and some of those things?
Sure. So good question. We currently, we're a cow-calf operation with some cash grains. My rotation basically is up in the air every year until spring hits. In fact, it's hard to contract anything because I'm never sure what I'm going to have growing. I just kind of like to be adaptable depending on what the spring looks like. But it basically consists of oats, oftentimes oats and peas together, cereal rye with hairy vetch grown together as well. And that one quick caveat there, the rye and vetch I think is pretty cool. That Millborn Seed is starting to now buy rye vetch mixes dirty. You can combine them together and they'll buy them together and clean and separate themselves. That's really exciting to see seed companies starting to do that so that people can, wade into the waters of soil health and practicing some of these soil health practices without having to worry about what am I going to do with this seed? I know this is the best way to grow it, but what are we going to do with this seed? So it's really nice to see companies starting to buy that way. So also graze, lots of cover crops. So lots of different multi-species mixes we put in. We're starting to do a double crop cover crop each year for a regen year. And we take our animals across it in the spring. So it's a cool season mix planted, grazed off early June. And then we go back in and plant a warm season mix and hopefully get through that by, about end of September or so. And maybe even mid-September, depending on rainfall, and also leave some for winter grazing if we can. Any summertime crops like oats or rye that comes off, we go back in with a cover crop, hoping to get enough growth on it to at least graze it a little bit in the winter with the cows. We go through our corn stalks after combining with, we plant the non-GMO untreated seed corn, and we graze through that in the winter with the cows. I did plant some untreated soybeans this year. They were a Roundup Ready variety, but they were untreated. And so I did that a little bit on I don't know, about 200 acres this year. So I've planted buckwheat as well. And that's been something I'm eager to figure out how to grow, weed free and chemical free. I don't know any chemicals you can spray and crop on it. So also growing some millet and some lentils as well. So it's kind of up in the air for cash grains, just whatever it seems like the market's ready for, the soil needs, and what the spring moisture is looking like. Our cow calf operation, we do keep all our heifer calves as replacements. Not all of them. We keep the top end for replacements, and we spay the bottom end and run them as on grass and sell in the fall. But probably 2 weeks or so, we'll probably sell those spays, and then we keep our grass finished. We keep our middle cut of our steers. We sell a heavy load of steers off the cow in the fall, and then we take our middle cut and we make grass finishers out of them and run them on through the winter just on grass and alfalfa, and then any winter grazing we have as well. And then in the spring, we get them on the first thing to green up, usually cereal, rye, and vetch, and graze that, put on native pasture until the warm season mix is ready. And then we put them on that about this time of year and finish out till about November. And then we take some of our animals we actually take them to a federal inspected plant up in Hecla to be processed. And so that's what we do with our cattle side. We're eager. We did get 8 hives of bees. So we are learning how to, beekeeping for dummies, I guess. We have a local guy that teaches us the ropes with keeping our honeybees. And we're looking forward to getting into some haired sheep in the near future once we kind of get some permanent high tensile electric up that we can split up with poly wire as well. So that's kind of the future there. And we do have our own chickens, but that's not really on a large scale, just for ourselves as well. So that's what our operation looks like right now.
Yeah. So if I would have asked you that question in 2007, would you have started by saying we're a cow-calf operation?
We had about 40 head of cows at that point, and it was just cow calves, and we didn't really worry about getting across our fields at all. It was, my wife and I were actually custom fencing at the time. We got married in 2007, and had a custom fencing business and 40 head of cows. So that's about where it started, I guess you'd say.
Right. Yeah. I was just wondering if you would have described yourself as a corn bean farmer or a cow-calf guy.
Sure. Yeah,
then.
2011, I probably would have said primarily we farm. So
yeah, so there's been
the
a
cattle have
transition
definitely become more prominent in our operation. For sure.
Yep. And I'd really like the way you described that with the early season, cool season cover crop mix, grazing that, and then going to the native pastures until the warm seasons are ready, and kind of gives you a lot of flexibility as far as, grazing and some of those things, it sounds like.
Yeah, it really has. It's definitely been a learning experience, and I certainly haven't figured it out on my own, and I still haven't figured it out probably, but I've had a lot of good influences and helping with figuring out how to kind of go about it. And Gabe Brown's been a huge mentor with figuring out some of that stuff, and especially on the crops side of things, he's really helped me get down that path. And I do like the flexibility it gives us in being able to extend our grazing days on our natives and not hit it quite so hard. I know early on, I really took advantage of the early season grasses in the native pastures and hit it a bit too hard, I would say. And I've need to kind of come back around and heal that cool season side of things on the natives a little better.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, great story. I appreciate your time today, and would encourage people, if they got some time in the calendar, to check out the Pennington County Conservation Conference, first ever conference this year in Rapid City, South Dakota, on Wednesday, September 25th. And there will be links in the show notes page for today at workingcows.net/382. Roy, anything else before I let you go?
I just am grateful for the opportunity to be here, and I just thank you for what you're doing on your podcast. And it's just a wonderful podcast to listen to, and I'm so glad that I got an opportunity to be on it. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Very good stuff there with Roy. Really appreciate him coming on to share his story of his journey from dis-ease to the abundant life. And very much looking forward to the episode next week with Alex Russell. Alex is with Chucktown Acres in Charleston, South Carolina, and he's going to talk to me about direct-to-consumer marketing. Very excited for this conversation. He's a really smart guy. I first heard him on Jared Sorensen's Regenerative Legacy Summit, and he just did such a great job without any notes. He had kind of a hectic, crazy day of everything going wrong, and so he wasn't in front of his computer where he planned to be to share his slides, but he was just kind of leaned over the back of his tailgate on his phone in a parking lot near a farmer's market and just kind of shared things that he's learned in the course of his direct-to-consumer marketing business. And I wanted to give him an opportunity to share that with you all, but also wanted to give him an opportunity to share it out, flesh it out, and share just some of the different angles that he was able to share in the 30 minutes he had on the Regenerative Legacy Summit. So we'll be talking to Alex Russell on another episode of the Working Cows podcast coming your way real soon. We will see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.